Kristen and her husband. They had a long, engineering, Michael is 24, and his MBA. And masters. Wow.
Someone want to get my.
Castine board is one person. 7:03. And the purpose of this meeting is to discussion regarding the Nashville historic water course that flows behind this building down to Water Street. And before we get too far along, I'm going to introduce myself and then we'll go around and ask for not talk to Chairman of the Castine. So
I'm Roberta Boskowitz, I'm a member of the Castine Select Board.
I am a member of the planning board.
Good, I'm town manager Castine.
And I'm Tom Comishano, I'm chair of the planning board.
Beth Bishop, planning board. Penny Carlian, planning board.
And folks in the audience want to introduce yourselves, so we know who you are.
Jerry DeBona, tax-paying citizen.
Okay.
Jeff Knigle, son of a abutting property owner to the discussion.
Sarah Kneisel, wife of Jeff.
I'm from Paul Town.
Susan Maycumber, Main Street resident.
Got logo owner. One of the abutting properties.
Okay. And folks on Zoom. Do we have any?
Yeah, we have Castine in, I'm not sure who's representing them.
Hi, it's Deb Hamblin Wood from the Castine Inn.
And then next we have Lee. He's unmuted, but she may not have sound. I don't see anything coming out of her mic yet. So
They live
David,
on Green Street, it's the Rossingers.
okay. And we have David Lyle. Oh, there he is, he's waving. David, where's he live?
In here next door.
Okay, hi Dave. Not to have my head turned from you, but, Marissa Rossinger. Right? Shell Robinson and somebody from Water Street. I'm sure the Water Street person is, but.
Can I shut the door? Because they're going to turn it in.
Yeah. So, let me also change this view.
Well, this issue was brought to the board. And, there was a suggestion made that the property owners involved with this water course be offered an opportunity to work the issue out amongst themselves. And I don't know how far that has gone to this point, but I think the select board to work this out is an almost impossible situation. And I say that because under Maine law, water that's flowing in a natural water course downhill, obviously, because of gravity. And when one property owner passes that water to the next one, it becomes the responsibility of the next downhill property owner. And then from there on to the next one, et cetera. And I don't see where the Castine Select Board can make any decision as to how to solve this problem. I think it is up to the property owners to work it out. The water course is a privately owned water course that's owned by several people who own property down the hill as it goes. And the town of Castine has no ability to impose a solution. So I'm gonna ask planning board what, if you have any opinion on the matter.
The whole thing is, I've been on the planning board for roughly 14 years. And it seems like every year, this situation comes up in front of us. And there seem to be no solutions. We did a little history background. And it seems like there was actually an association years ago. Any of you familiar with that at all? Supposedly there was an association that was handling this whole water course, starting from behind Emerson Wall down to Water Street. And we had a diagram, I think Derek probably has it. It is, yeah.
Keep chatting, keep talking.
Derek catch up. Derek has a diagram that was developed, I think Scott, you put it together. It actually shows all the houses and all the businesses. Their drain is coming from their basement, coming out into this water course, right? The increase of water when it rains, the increase of water. What we're looking at as planning board, and I understand what Gordon just said also. What we're looking at is for all the people that are putting water into that water course to take some responsibility, to handle different things. For example, down, I think it's one drain is by the Nigel's property. And then there's another one right outside the quarter deck, right? And then there's those,
It's on the street.
on street, Water Street. So there's 3 drains. Some of the problems that happen is with all the silt and everything else that's coming down, it's building a berm up. And basically, once we get heavy rains, it overflows, and this is where it's going into some of the businesses on both sides. It's also backing up. If the drains are going into that, if you got the water level, nothing's draining out. It's adding to it. So we're looking to see if all homeowners and business owners that we can do something where these drains aren't getting cleaned. And that's a responsibility. That would save some of the businesses that lower it. But my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, all these properties alongside commercial properties and also on Green Street are also affected with their waters in the basement. Is that true, or that's something that
It's certainly.
you're on the other side of the street. You don't have a drain coming into this, right, Mark?
Don't think so.
No, okay. So I mean, basically the ones that are backing water force, if you look at all this, it's all drains coming into there. We want to have a discussion because instead of people pointing fingers at each other, saying this is your problem, this is you're causing this problem. Number one, it's a natural thing. And as Gordon said, the water flows downhill. How can we help all of you? Like I said, with the association that was once developed years ago, I guess.
And I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that. I've never heard of it.
Yes, and it was history, our CEO brought it to my attention that actually, and I don't know, if people just put in $50 a year or $100 a year to have drains cleaned out and so forth, if that was something.
Would you like me to give a little bit of the history as I understand it?
Sure.
So. Yeah. Summer person. I did not spend a ton of time in 2 weeks in the summer.
Mhm.
My parents retired up here as summer people. As I understand it, the former owners of the bakehouse, Joey and Bob McNumber, were having some water issues, some sort of water issues.
Mhm.
They approached my father and asked if they could put a drain on my parents' property. I'm not sure to what extent the town was involved in decisions about this, but because my parents were friendly and with and supportive of Joey and Bob and the bakehouse, they said, sure. But my understanding is they accept no responsibility for what was done. It was really just a friendly act. My mother and I have looked at the best of our ability for any paperwork, any, anything that confirms the specifics of this,
Mhm.
but we haven't found anything. All we remember that it was my father saying, sure, we'd like you guys, do what you need to do to help with the water issues. And honestly, it hasn't been much of a consideration since then, and I think this was in the late 90s. The drain has been there. I know in the past, probably not in the last year, but a couple of years ago, there was some major rainstorm that clearly flooded pretty badly. It's pretty obvious that part of the reason is the berm that's built up from silt. At discussion between my mother and the current owners of the state house, I guess I should say the owners after Bob and Joey, same informal agreement that, yeah, they would take care of whatever that drain was. I mean, I do not think my parents at any point paid much attention to what it was. They agreed to have it installed. There was some sort of town infrastructure project that seemed to connect that thing to the drain, 30 feet down on the bakehouse property as well as the street. I don't have any knowledge of whether my parents were aware of or involved in whatever the town did. But Kelly and Mark Sawyer, same deal. They would take care of whatever was needed for the drain. Certainly I didn't hear much about any flooding until a storm, two years ago maybe, where it clearly overflowed. It flooded my mother's property, it apparently flooded the bakehouse property, etc. I don't believe it's happened since then. At the time, though, my mother did give Miss Robinson permission to clear the drain as was necessary to protect her property. I certainly viewed that permission as evergreen. That was with the previous owners to do what they needed to do to clear the drain. Beyond that, I don't have a whole lot to say. My mother, who's probably somewhere on the, is currently regretting the friendly decision that she and my father made 20+ years ago to ever allow the drain to be put there. Her inclination is to undo that permission, just fill it in or get rid of it and go back to what it was before the permission was granted. Which I know is not the most
Does that
helpful situation, but
Does that include the berm?
I'm sorry,
Does that include the berm that's there?
the berm is built up because of, I mean, it's, yeah, the berm is built up clearly because of silt.
On those,
What happens on heavy rains that
And-
rain
And in the water, I don't,
into the berm.
I'm not too familiar with the history of the water course.
Right.
I'm really not. I do know that because of complaints from the business owners, my mother removed 5 trees that were in the area, which clearly would have helped with any drainage issues because of their living root systems and need for water. So those were removed, and that, I don't know to what extent that's made the issue worse. The berm is clearly part of a current issue, but because my family has never accepted any responsibility for the drain itself, I mean, a quick cut in the berm would clearly probably be helpful, and I guess that's what I'm frustrated, because I could do that easily myself, but I don't want to be accepting responsibility for maintaining.
Okay. Anybody have Scott?
I think it's important, everything Jeff had just mentioned is true. But it isn't an isolated incident 2 years ago. I mean, I used to work with Mark in the kitchen. And was friends with them for years, along with Bob, and that basement has flooded many times. Rugs had to be removed, didn't go down there and then be standing water in the dining area. That happened numerous times. It happened once just before the new buyers bought it, 2 or 3 days, something like that, a week before. So I think there's some awareness that this was a wet basin. And it was in the disclosure that it was a wet basin. I don't know of anything that could be done to change that. I know you could do things to change the wet basin, but I don't think you can do anything to direction the volume or anything, from up above. I don't see how you would do it. I mean, just certainly willing to talk about it and do anything I could do, but I don't see it, you know.
Well, the whole thing, Scott, is you've taken on a lot of responsibility for your area. We're looking at to get input from everybody, see if we can all improve on that, in their property or whatever's happening. And that's the thing. It's not just one person's problem.
No.
And that's what comes in front of us as the planning board. If we sit there, I mean, I have an application, we go over the application, right? We can't, all we're here for is to make sure the application fulfills what they're requesting. After that, our responsibility can't take care of the problems that you people are dealing with. That's why we wanted to have a public meeting here, that everybody could have input. And see if we can do something.
So, and we're honestly quite surprised that the current building that's going on that was approved by the planning board without a proper drainage plan. They clearly have very little green space to allow for drainage in the area. What's currently being done there, but it's coming down along the side of the building, which I assume is for drainage, which seems to make perfect sense. But that it diverts and they've dug onto my mother's property to the drain that's on the property, which I mean, I'm not a engineer or a switches that, but I can't imagine that that's a better idea than going down to the drain that's on their property, which is going downhill versus, making an L to come into the drain that's on my mother's property. It's very, it's, the summer vegetation has grown up high, but if anybody wants to go look, you're welcome to go on my mother's property, take a look. It's very strange.
Now,
And they certainly did not have permission to be digging on the mother's property.
now, who did this?
I mean, the contractors who are working there.
I have pictures if anybody wants to see it.
It's hard to understand from the photos. I would recommend a visit.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we've been there originally.
Yeah, I know originally, but this is, I hadn't been there in a while. I looked probably 3 or 4 days ago. It's very bizarre what's happening.
We were there, what was it, 2 years ago? Right, that we went, because 3 of us were reserved.
Yeah, I think I'm part of that visit. That's the entire time.
Yeah. Mhm. And so that's basically why we wanted to bring you people here. There are different things that, if we can get everybody to watch each other, we can get some of this world.
I don't know how.
I don't have I mean, I don't have a position here, but it seems to me that the town or somebody needs to engage a civil engineer to look at this on a macro level. Look at all of the catch basins and drainage structures and how it all connects to a final drainage solution. And if you have to assign costs to individual property owners, or if the town decides to take on this problem. I know last year, when the bakehouse received its approval for it, and the bakehouse current owners, for the project, I asked a question at the planning board meeting. I said, there are all these drawings of everything, but there are no drainage drawings. There's no civil engineering drawings. And a member of the audience said, it's none of your business what they do on their own private property. I just sat down again and said, you're right, it isn't any of my business. But it seems to me that if I had a problem, I would try to solve it. I know that neighbors on the other side, when they developed their property, they put in a big trench drain, and they connected to catch basins, and it exits down to the harbor. They fixed it. If you're not willing to take on a solution, then you'll just find years and years of this sort of, no solutions being brought forward. But I think somebody needs to engage a civil engineering firm, because this is not the only place in the world where flooding occurs at the bottom of it.
Well, that's the whole situation, and this is why, like Gordon said, for the town to take.
I missed the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, for the town to take responsibility. We have about 4 or 5 other areas in town that are affected very, very similar to this situation. The town's not going to take on that responsibility.
Can I just want a clarification. What if I wanted to put a catch basin on my property? Do I go to the town to get an approval to do that? Because I'm tying into a town water system. So what is the mechanism for we have the 2 drains or catch basins that are there? What was the interface with the town to put those there?
In this case, it's very vague, because there is no record of the town ever permitting to have the connection into the town system. Okay,
So
So if it was a new one tomorrow.
a new one, then the proper procedure would be to go to the town and ask for permission to connect into the town system. Would review it, and if necessary, would hire a civil engineering firm or somebody to determine whether the capacity of the town system was adequate to handle what was trying to be put into it. And after all of that, if the answers were yes, it's appropriate, the town system can handle it, then a permit would be issued by the town.
So in 2022, my mother had a text conversation with Bob Macumber, who, said that at the time, and I have no direct recollection, that she and my father approached the town about this drain, and the town denied. I don't know what happened between that and its existence. But it somehow the town has obviously connected in something into it to connect the various drains down to the street.
I think Robbie Robinson was the town manager then. I think Robbie said that it was okay for them to do it, but the town was not gonna take any responsibility for that drain.
And it was, I didn't say it.
Or the cost.
Thought, you know, if my parents approved it, they would pay for it. I really, I wish I could provide more detail.
When Joey named it.
The next one, it's another a manhole cover, right next to the quarter deck.
Yeah, yes, that's the, so there's three. There's the one that's just barely on my mother's property. There's the one that's a little lower on the bakehouse, or whatever you want for the property. Or, yeah, the bakehouse property. And then that leads out to the one that's right at the edge of the sidewalk on Water Street.
So is there two at the bakehouse?
One,
One, just one.
but sorry, yeah, one, I
Yes, the
got
lower.
a little confused with the quarter.
I'm just trying to visualize because we saw the one in front of the berm.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes. So that's technically my mother's
Right,
property.
that's not.
Then there's one on the bakehouse property near the brick wall. And then, as far as I know, the next one is on the actual street right next to the sidewalk. But how they were all connected through some, I assume, town approved infrastructure. I think that,
Apparently, it was not approved by the town. It was some kind of a verbal thing.
well, some, really?
There's no record. And if there's no record, it had to be a verbal thing. Because
But
the town records are what we have to depend upon. I mean, that's the only way we can do business.
so I certainly know that my parents were not involved in any sort of infrastructure project. They said it bond, as far as I understand,
Right, they gave a verbal and bottom Joe pretty much took care of what happened to.
And I don't know, you guys probably, you might know more than me.
I mean, that's what I've been told over the
Yeah.
years, is that Robbie Robinson was the town manager. He reviewed, Joey took it to him to review the concept, he said, okay. But the town was not gonna do any work, no cost, no, none of the underground infrastructure.
And again, my time here was very limited. I certainly don't remember any major digging of sorts, but. Remember.
Joey,
that, but-
yeah.
Joey lives in Castine. Would it be helpful to ask him what was constructed exactly? What's underneath the ground? Does that catch basin have a decent sized pipe that connects to the next catch basin and a decent sized pipe to the next one? What's under the ground?
You can look in there,
know,
you can look in there and see that. There's a 12.
underground, I can't see.
So you can see the inlet.
You see it in a pipe going out of the catch basin and then going into the next one, so you don't have.
There's a pipe that's visible between.
Well, there's a hole on the side of it.
And it's there's
I've
no-
watched water flowing up to know that they are connected.
Yeah, and they are connected to the street.
So if everybody got together and they wanted to solve the problem, and nothing has been approved for this solution, what would they have to do in vis-a-vis the town in finding out if it could be put into the town system? What would this
So
next step?
there would have to be some kind of a formal proposal to do whatever it was that was decided that what was to be done. In other words, the town would need the drawings and the specifications of the system that was being proposed. And then the town could take action on that. But absent any of that, the town can't do anything.
Who should do that? Planning board?
Well, the homeowners would have to
The property owners.
the property owners.
Property, no. If that came up with a proposal. Would then go to you guys.
Well, probably go to you guys in the planning board, but
You guys,
Not to you.
But no tossing, but the whole reason, part of the reason that, not the whole reason, part of the reason that the select board wanted to have this meeting was because there are other areas in town where this exact same thing happens. But the homeowners have come together to work together as a group to find a solution. And so we're, on Perkins, off of Perkins. There are 3 or 4 homeowners that have gotten together over there to work out a solution to their drainage issue.
Cheryl Robinson says she has a picture of the pipes. If you guys want to see them, she can share them.
That'd be great.
All right, Michelle, let me know if you can share your screen or not, or the picture if you have it there.
just as an aside,
To
while
share
we're
screen sharing is disabled.
Okay, hold on, I'll try to fix.
it seems to me the simplest and probably the most practical solution.
Okay, try it.
Homeowners to get together and work with each other to devise a solution for this. As somebody mentioned, some kind, what did you say it was, an association? An association. I know I've been involved in several associations over the course of my years. And most things can be resolved if everybody just talks to each other and agrees. And I don't know what the real issue is here. I've heard about berms and all those other things, but if it's maintenance of a water course that can be directed to the existing system that's down there, the unapproved system from the town perspective of manhole and catch basins, that wouldn't involve a whole lot of money. But that's only
what's the date on it there?
2014.
that's only my perspective, and it's certainly not something that the town can enforce or require. It's something that would have to be devised by the property owners cooperatively.
I'm on Wilson Point. We have an association. Basically, we handle, they used to call it association for everything, but really it's a road association. So if we have any problems with the pipes that we have to put on the pipes on the road and so forth, it's not an HOA, but I guess people could look at it as that. It's basically, we about $200 a house into this, and then we pull from that if we need to put drainage and so forth. So we're always constantly looking. The road repairs that happens through our $200 a household. We probably, if you talk to this UPS drivers and FedEx drivers, we got the best dirt road in the state of Maine. It's kept up, right? And every year we put in probably $3,000 every year into that road. But the association does work. So that's when Sean mentioned something about a previous association. I thought that might be a good direction for all of us to go into. Either that, we would have to start looking at if the town wants to take the responsibility, it's going to be taxpayers again. And I doubt that's going to happen. So where our taxes are going as it is. So it's not going to be something where everybody wants to clean up this mess and back here. my whole thing is I would really like the finger pointing to stop and for us to be able to figure out a way as a community to take care of it.
So I understand your position. But because of repeated antagonistic threats to my mother made by these property owners, cooperation is not going. Nothing to do with them, no communication at all, period. I personally want to take a shovel and spend 5 to 10 minutes to clear that berm. Just, it'll be an easy thing to do, but I know that that will then result in evidence of him taking responsibility for the situation. Really, under 10 minutes, I can clear that berm. I want it. I want to clear that berm. It's clearly that's the problem. It's silt that's built up.
With the agita that I've seen over the 14 years, I'll come and help you today.
Okay, but you're, I want to do it. I want to do it. It is not a friendly relationship with neighbors. I'm sorry.
But here's exactly where an association would work, because the association, not an individual property owner, would be responsible for the activities of the association. But here again, the town is not willing to take on this responsibility.
And I'm sorry, but the situation is not affecting my mother's property. They seem to have done a lot of infrastructure work. Think will alleviate the past issues. They put these big, I mean, it looks good what they're doing. But I'm not sure how this has become the responsibility in any which way of my mother to deal with. I mean, she, if anything, if she's done anything to make it more of a problem, it was removing the 5 trees due to threats from the new property owners, which the trees were, bringing up the water. The live root systems were helping the situation. They're now gone. It made the erosion worse. I just don't see how after all these years, again, since the late 90s, this has become a responsibility for issue for my mother.
So can I jump in?
Thing that's going on for decades here is the property owners at 26 Water Street have taken care of it on their own. Nobody in that property ever blamed everybody about it. It's just the way it is. They took care of it the best they could because that was their property and that's what, they had to protect it. Now, all of a sudden, the new owners blame it on everybody else. And it's nobody else's fault.
And again, I will add, but it did give them permission to come onto the property in that area to do what they deemed necessary to clear the drain, etc.
But as did the previous owners of the bakehouse and the previous.
And I think they did that once or twice, but I haven't seen it clogged in quite a while, but they did clear it once or twice and that was great.
Tony?
Yes.
What is your part in this? Would you belong to an association?
I don't know. I just
clean
came because I got a notice at the job.
Pardon?
Should we let Michelle?
I think it's good, yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle?
So one of the things that has changed is that the property behind us is getting developed more and more. So 20 years ago, the lot behind us and the lot behind that, so the 2 lots between the bakehouse and the Kneisel property and the Castine Inn it was vegetation. And the planning board has allowed development of the lot without requiring that the speed of the water coming off the lot be maintained at the same rate of speed that it was prior to development. That's all. And if you can slow the water down, you slow the sediment because the sediment will drop out and then the drain won't clog. And we've said this continuously now, every time there's a development project uphill from us, that the water speed coming off the lot needs to not change from what it was before development. And that's not my rule, that is the rule. It's in the Castine zoning ordinance. It's in the federal regulations, it's in the state regulations, like water coming off your property can never leave your property at a rate greater than it was before you did the development. And if you look at an older Google view, right, now you see a building, you see hot top, you see gravel, you see sheds, you see decks, right? And so it's coming faster. And if it's slowed down, and we talked about this 2 years ago when Scotty said he would add riprap pools, plunge pools to slow the water down. That didn't happen. And now, you know, we're at it again. And all I'm asking is that the rate of the water coming down the hill, and we're all responsible for the rate of water coming down the hill. I'm responsible for the water on my property to not flood Main Street and not flood my neighbors, right? And we are taking care of controlling our water the way it was previously controlled. And we're just asking that the neighbors uphill do the same. That's all. And you know, I know Scotty's getting ready to, or maybe he's already done it. He's going to put riprap in the water course. I don't know if that's going to slow it down. I think it'll help. But I don't know if it's big enough, right? Before the property was purchased by Scotty, it acted like a large retention pond, right? It was filled with bamboo. The water got in there, it kind of swirled around and it drained out. Now it rushes through the property at a much greater rate of speed. That's all I've been saying.
I can, when I was on the planning board 2.5 years ago, it was my understanding when Scott had the engineer do the whole study, that at that time, and I can't speak to anything after it, but at that time, the engineer's study said that with the improvements being made, the changes being made, the rate of the water and the amount of water was not going to change. That everything was going to be put in such a way that would not change. Am I confused?
That's correct, in that it was part of a project. But none of that project was ever done.
Okay.
It wasn't like I did part of the project and didn't do another part.
Okay.
I didn't do any part of that project. The town and the Robinsons took that. I initially started that. I'll make this as quick as I can, but I initially started that with a slope to the property line up to a plateau that was big enough to park 7 or 8 cars. Okay. Then the planning board told me I had to move within 10 feet off the line. And then the engineer said the slope was too steep, so it had to be even less. So I ended up with spending, if I did it, I was gonna end up spending, you know, $75,000 to $100,000 to 2 spots. Because of all that, and everybody else in the neighborhood had already done something like that. They burned and went to the property line, they put up rock walls on the property line, they did all this stuff. And then when I came, you made the project impossible, financially impossible to do. And that was not my fault. I wanted to build that up and do it right. And it would have been fine. But after 2 years of fighting and engineering, it turned out to be impossible to do financially and gain anything out of it. Didn't do it. I didn't do any part of it. So because I didn't do anything, I don't have to do anything. If I'd done half of it and not done plunge pools and all this other stuff, fine, thank you. I didn't.
So would it be worthwhile if the homeowners could get together and everybody could put in a little bit and have an engineering study done or figure out a way to fix it, or
The issue is that everybody north of me and the Robinsons don't have a problem with it. So they're not gonna be all happy to go spending a lot of money on engineering and which could possibly turn into a major project on their properties when they're not complaining. I'm not complaining. I've had to take care of it. And I've had days, I mean, you all know, I've had days with my garage where the water comes up a foot out of the floor drains. So it isn't, you know, and I'm not going to the Castine Inn saying, no, 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 you're gonna have to change all that stuff. I take care of it, it's my problem. And that's the end of that story.
Okay.
Most places that have catch basins have a maintenance, on those catch basins. I know that all the towns I've ever lived in, that the leaves going down them, there's maintenance that's done, you know, on a schedule. And maybe as little as trying to clear the catch basin on a schedule, which would not be horribly expensive for the people involved, would be something that the neighbors could accept to see if it helps, at least try it for a year or something.
The problem with that is Mark and Kelly went over and cleaned that regularly. They kept it
As
clean.
did Joey and Bob.
And Joey and Mark kept it clean.
And the current owners have the permission to do that.
Yeah.
So that's.
As a
The current owners,
I
we
can
do
it.
not.
So again, don't want, I'm happy to do it as a favor to the town of Castine, which I don't want it to be seen or officially
Major
assumed to be responsible.
Okay, slicing a hole through that berm does not solve the problem. What it does is it moves the problem, right? So right now, your catch basin is getting clogged with sediment. If you were to slice a hole through the berm, then the catch basin that's downstream, which currently does not get clogged with sediment, would then get clogged with sediment. The problem is the water speed needs to be slowed down so that the sediment falls out. Okay, moving the problem downhill, eventually you'll move the problem right into the catch basin that's in the street, and then it will be the town's problem.
No, I understand what you're saying. I think it would be a help. I agree that sediment would then just flow down to the other drain if sediment was in the water. But it would be a help.
But it seems like, to Penny's point, if the catch basins were cleaned on a regular schedule, or the burn was removed regularly.
Yeah, does the town contract for our catch basins?
I would assume we do, but I haven't got to that point, okay?
We
In
do.
all my towns where we sumps every spring.
I mean, maintenance people.
Well, a little late, early summer after the swaps.
We also have somebody come in with one of those vacuum trucks.
That trucks, okay, because it's on the street and so forth. My thing would be, if we contracted even with the town of Castine, to just clean those things out.
If an association or somebody else wanted to contract with them while they were in town, I'm sure that could be arranged.
Ideally, though, if people are worried about those silting in, you'd want to, in the riprap, you do little check dams to like capture the silt a little bit, you know, go to the next one. That's how to slow it down through.
I mean, if this whole thing that happened 25, 30 years ago wasn't approved by the town of Castine, I'm inclined to go with my mother's idea of just filling in the drain, undoing what was approved as a favor 30 years ago. And see what.
Well, the question I have, I mean, like I said, out in Wilson Point, on my property, I have a basement drain that goes out to the stream. Okay, which goes out to the ocean or the bay. But I gotta get permits for them to do that. Are all the businesses and all the houses that have pipes coming out, were they all permitted?
So the only pipe that I know is the one being installed right now that my mother did not give permission to, that is coming from the Bakehouse property into the drains. I don't know about any other pipes, and I assume there's pipes that go in between the various drains that were done 20, 30 years ago, like 30 years ago. But no, as far as permits, if there were any permits or weren't any permits, my family had nothing to do with it.
No, and we're not directing everything at you. So, I appreciate your input on this whole thing, because we need the history. But that's something that I was looking up here that's done. That's showing all the houses and properties that are going into that water course. Scott,
The planning board approved every one of those drains.
it did.
Every time somebody builds something, that it's on the boundaries of fact of where the drainage is going. And you gotta show the pipe in the ground, you gotta show it all. So somewhere along the line, you folks approved that. The drains, you know, as part of the construction project. It's on the planning board at the time,
Right.
approved it. They just approved one, I think, for over on Green Street for Fuentes 2 years ago. That one just went in. It's the one over there on the right, Fuentes,
Right here.
that's brand new. So. I'm sure. You know, and I guess I don't understand why, Michelle, when she was doing this, new drain that she just put in last week, why didn't she go to her own catch basin?
Yeah.
And then in your findings of fact on that permit for that building, it specifically says no drainage needed, no earth movement on the project. And we go down there looking at it now and tell me there's no earth moving and there's no drainage done.
It defies gravity. What's being done now.
And it's not even
Should go down. I don't understand.
There was never
Not a
a
bad-
permit. I don't remember anything coming through us for any type of piping and anything else.
No, there isn't.
So I
It's
mean,
done now.
that's.
The
That's the
pipe,
question.
the piping that you guys are seeing, okay? It was an existing pipe that was put in 30 years ago with the catch basin. It's bored into the catch basin. We only looked at it to see what it looks like, okay? We didn't do anything to it.
But you did dig on my mother's property without permission.
No, actually, we didn't.
You did. I mean, we can go look at it tomorrow.
And you installed a little catch basin up on the property line. Where does that go?
Because you won't fill in the hole, but we're connecting to the existing drainage. There's an underground.
You just said you didn't add anything. You added a catch basin, so what's up on the top end?
Okay, I was also told by the select board to go fix the problem myself. And so we continue to talk about it, everyone, because I'm
But
gonna
you
get
can
the
do it
problem
without a
fixed.
permit. You
I
can do
don't
it
need a
without
permit.
But
I've been
everybody
talking
else
to my I've been talking to my CEO, so don't worry about it, Sue Maycomber.
Her CEO.
It's, again, meeting.
Okay, it's on, this is, the planning board keeps approving water being added to this water course without any requirement that the people adding water slow it down. That is on the planning board.
Again, the projects that we have approved of recently shows that there is riprap and also fabric that's being put into that will take care of the silt and also slow down the speed. That's what the planning board basically approved. We haven't approved anything else, any other pipes or catch basins. And again, with the members of the planning board, if I'm incorrect, please feel free to correct me. But that's what we've done. The project that came in front of us, the Vogel project, was with the riprap and also the fabric that we felt after looking at different things and also improving some of the questions that we had, all right, that it met the findings of fact, and that's why it was approved. This meeting, we felt was very important that we could talk to all the adjacent property owners. And that's really what we're trying to do. Again, the finger pointing in the art, we're a small community. We should be working together and not against each other. And that's what I'm trying to stop as much as possible. So,
I'm hearing no interest in solving the problem by owners association, no interest in developing one. So we're now back to square one. And that, who's gonna do it other than the planning board to ask the selectmen to clean the area of the,
I mean, if there's some way, is it,
and, excuse me, just put it on the agenda and do it, because it's not going to be done by any other group. That's what I'm hearing.
And I can tell you the select board cannot do it because it's private property. And we cannot do it on private.
Well, we do a lot of things.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
Okay.
I mean, there's legal ways to do a lot of stuff, but it's a very expensive way if we went that way. And the take properties or what about right of ways? Easement, you need easement, not a right of way, but easement, yeah. Maintenance easement is what we need. Is that something that's a drainage easement too? Yeah.
May I ask just one quick, or actually two questions? The first
Sure.
one is, thanks. So the first one is, how did we get here? So who presented an application to the planning board that resulted in this meeting, first off? And secondly, who drew the map of the watershed?
The map was drawn by Scott. And basically.
a long time ago?
Yeah.
You want how
2
long?
years
2 years,
ago.
well, that's a long time before my time. That's a
When
long
we
time.
first applied for a permit to the planning board.
And then it was also, was it the map you're talking about? And then the application was also, the Vogel application is what caused most of this controversy. Right, that's why we're here, because their application was complete. And it met the requirements that, it fulfilled the application that we were looking for. They had 3 findings of facts. They came back to us with correction on that, which improved on the initial application. And so their application was approved to complete the project that they're looking at. That's where this whole thing came from.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
No problem.
Is that the project that indicated they did not do?
No, this is a new project. This is the most recent project. And as I mentioned, even with Michelle and so forth, we feel that the project that they're doing now is gonna slow the water down and also take the silt, not all of it, but take the silt out. And if you do look in the back, I mean, I walk back there just to see if I could get through the brush and everything else that's back there. I think Sean, a couple of years ago, him and his wife, they actually burned everything down. And it cleared that you could see the entire place going down. Well grown up. It's what, 6-8 feet out there of, I don't know what kind of dust.
It's not, it's funny, I was out back knocking out some of that and breaking it off so I could get my truck deeper into that today.
No, and they had cleared that whole area.
Yeah.
They did a nice job, it looked good, but it just keeps coming back.
Right. Yeah.
I have a question. So, am I understanding correctly? That Michelle, you've put in a catch basin? Is that correct? She's not talking. No.
I've put in a yard drain that's connected to my underground downspout system. And that was something that was probably done 20 years ago, right? um, by whenever an addition was done, because there's pipes that connect to the catch basins from the bakehouse property. From both sides of the building that go into those catch basins.
Okay, I'm
I
just
didn't-
trying to, understand. So you made improvements to that.
So at the back of the property, I have been asking for help because there's a depression that was created that's directing water out of the waterway and towards the bakehouse. And I've asked for help to get that depression filled. And Scotty Vogel has said bluntly that he will never do it for me. And Gordon, you said to me when I came in and asked for help, fix it yourself. Okay, so I put in a yard drain. That's all it is. It's not a catch basin, it's a yard drain. And it's tied into my downspout system.
Okay, and I just want to be clear, that was the project that did not need planning board approval.
I've been talking to Luke Shabali, the CEO for this project, and he did not indicate that I needed to do anything.
Okay, I just want to be clear. If that's how it went, then that's how it went, because I didn't know that there was something else that had been done.
And people might not be aware that Luke is the CEO at Bucksport that has taken on the responsibility to town that this responsibility onto him instead of our CEO here.
But I'm sure if it needed a permit, he would have had them come to the planning board.
Correct.
The permit says that I don't need a permit for digging that's incidental to the project.
Okay, is the depression, just curious, is the depression something that you could go to the planning board and get permission to bring in fill and fill it up if that was the way to solve it?
You wouldn't need permission to fill it up. It'll probably take, I don't know, a couple cubic feet of soil. It's on Scotty Vogel's property and he refuses to fill it. That's all.
And I'm just curious, has Luke granted you some sort of permission to be digging on my mother's property?
Okay, again, I'm not on your mother's property. The corner of that catch basin is on my property and we didn't do anything, so relax.
I'm talking about digging towards the drain.
The depression, and Scotty could answer this way better than I can. Obviously, he has had his stress level, he can't handle this anymore. The depression was not created by Scotty. The depression is made by water coming, again, downhill, but coming off of our property on a different slope. It comes from under Hank Durant's garage and spills out onto that angle, that short little angle that has created that depression. It's again a natural flow.
It's a natural flow. So-
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I haven't looked at it in 2.5 years, so. Well,
And the point is, all of the water back there should be going into the waterway. And there's a rivulet that's been etched out to create this path to the bakehouse. And it's been dug out. And I've asked Scotty at the last meeting if he would just fill it in, and he said, never for you. So,
Well-
everyone wants to point at me and go, you're not being cooperative. I've asked for help. Mary sent me a letter that has said, do not go on my property. And her son
is not
sits here
true,
and her son,
at all.
I'm speaking, and her son sits here and says, I have permission to clean out the drain. Okay, the trees,
We have
I
an
didn't force her
email
to take them
granting you
down. The
permission.
trees were in decline and an arborist took them down. I had nothing to do with that. I didn't even know they were coming down
Did
until they were
terroristic
down.
threats against my mother about the trees?
but Michelle, my point on the depression, going back to the depression thing, my point on the depression is if that's a natural water course, filling it in, it doesn't sound, I'm obviously not a civil engineer. please, I have no background in that, but it doesn't sound like if you fill in that depression, it will remain filled in. If it's a natural water course, it seems like it will just
Recreate.
make a new river,
It's-
like they do. So I
Because
don't know if
we
that
need
would
to,
be
we should define natural, because Scotty Vogel defines natural with his backhoe. Okay,
He did not
Well,
dig anything out over there, Michelle.
I have pictures of him digging.
Hang on.
I think that's good.
don't.
Yeah.
No, but it sounds like, because we have pipes coming out of this, the water comes from different places, that filling in one depression is not going to change the whole thing. The only thing that's gonna change it is for everyone to be able to work together to come to a solution. And that means we can't be pointing fingers at one another, and we can't be laying blame on one another, and we have to work together.
Sorry, this is David Lyle. Can I jump in here?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm David Lyle, 73 Court Street. So I'm up at the top of the hill. So obviously none of this has been affecting me. I was not aware of there was even an issue until this meeting. So thanks for putting this together. I guess it would help to us to develop a solution. I've heard multiple, anecdotes and memories and potential for increased flow rates. I don't know if it doesn't sound like anything's really been documented or measured other than the SketchUp that you guys put together, which is a great start. But it sounds like we need to really look at the water course and understand where and how it's coming from and negatively impacting different property owners. So we can come up with a solution. I mean, the solution may be us all coming together and banking some money into an association. It may be just giving Bakehouse team permission to go on the Scott's property and fill the hole and put in some rock and riprap that corrects the water course away from the bakehouse. So I'm not clear that there's a solution. I'm hearing from the town that you're not willing or that no one's able to just recruit a local surveyor or civil engineer to do an initial assessment or I don't know what that would take. Is that a $5,000 thing? Is that a $200 thing?
So the town has actually done a survey of the water courses. They hired Oliver and Associates to do it.
So there's a more formal survey map of the situation other than the sketch that we've been looking at.
The infrastructure, I think she's talking about the infrastructure improvement plan. I talked to Annalise from Oliver on that. So when they talk about the water crashing down over hills and banks, stuff like that, they're talking about stormwater from streets,
Right.
not collecting everybody's water in private properties and putting them in there. Because one of the things we're gonna be faced with coming up is West Court Street, for instance. Right now, there's approximately 5 private drains that go into either the sewer line or the catch basins that need to be there. So the board's gonna have to make a decision. Do we allow those cellar drains to hook into our catch basins? Just so you know, in Allenstown, where New Hampshire, where I was, we're in an MS4 town. We didn't generally allow that because we had to keep our water that gets discharged clean from any contaminants. And then we'd get hits every once in a while, somebody would dump something in there and we'd have to chase it back and figure out where it come from. Otherwise, we could get fined by the EPA for breaking those rules. Eventually, I'm guessing EPA will expand their arms around every place wanting to create clean water. But generally, MS4 towns are in an area that's considered a metropolitan area and therefore in a troubled water body like the considered. The irony of that, just so you know, where we were a small town, literally with maybe 1,000 feet on the river that really goes into that, but also another river, Concord,
which probably puts hundreds of thousands of gallons a day, is not an export. So you know it's coming for them next. Not to say the EPA comes for people, but I'm just saying that they will be probably addressing storm drainage in the future everywhere.
Well, what we wanted today is to have a conversation. We didn't want people to get upset and leave or get their blood pressure up, which I'm looking at you sometimes as a former EMT. I'm going, I should be checking some pulses here, right, real quick. We didn't need that. We didn't want that. We just wanted to have a conversation. Is there a way that we can eliminate or assist in this problem? Hoping that we could get cooperation from all homeowners. That's how we look like.
So can we get, I mean, do you have a resource that's mapped the other waterways that we can tap to map our issue and really understand it so we can figure out where and how to do this?
Well, Derek was.
I'm not saying you need to pay for it. I'm just saying, do you have someone we can talk to or that Michelle can recruit? As it sounds like it's primarily her, and we can maybe help her pay for that. But it sounds like we really need somebody to help us understand the problem instead of us just, as you said, pointing fingers and speculating about what the problem is.
Well, way back in the Native American days, before we had houses, I'm guessing there's water sheeting down over this area still.
Yeah.
And this seems to be the way that it may have been doing it. And of course, these other basement drains, I think, are adding to that water being collected elsewhere rather than just sheeting down over the hill in various areas. But normally water finds path of least resistance like a valley and will carve its own trenches. And that's what we have here. And in this case, it takes a village, and that village is this block between Main Street and Green Street and Court Street above Water Street. So if the village people aren't all agreeing, then we can't have a solution to a problem like that.
Right, but
I've asked for and to get it to this point.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm looking for, so obviously we can look at the projected surface area and any contribution from basements, and we can project a total water volume and and a survey of understanding how it's finding its way down the hill and where the natural course is versus where the it sounds like we've got some natural course forming that's not, potentially originating on Scott's property that's negatively affecting the bakehouse. So, we obviously, that's got to be corrected. We can't have water flowing into their house. So, but I mean, that's, whether it's somebody walking it or somebody, I would normally engage a surveyor or a civil engineer to just map that course for me and understand, okay, we want to put some riprap here, we want to put a culvert here, we want to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm happy to help as a neighbor. I don't obviously have a problem, but I'm happy to help. I don't know if an association is the end game here. Maybe it is after we get it solved and we decide, we need somebody to clean it regularly. Okay. But it sounds like there's a lot of animosity going on. And again, I got to start with some data versus where we seem to be. I'm not hearing any hard data. I'm hearing a lot of speculation and finger pointing.
So I know from talking to Oliver Associates that they are not able to work for private citizens in Castine because of a conflict.
I'm sorry, who's that?
Oliver Associates is the engineering firm that that the town of Castine uses and that did the initial infrastructure report.
What is their conflict?
Yeah, well, they told me they actually don't do work for private citizens because all of their clients are municipalities. So
Okay.
in talking with them, they have identified a civil engineer who works for private people who they have worked with. So I think that could be good in terms of sharing information, and the two civil engineering companies trust each other. I've engaged the civil engineer to help me with issues on my property related to requirements that we received related to our sprinkler system. Not to do a survey of the water course.
Okay, is the surveyor that works for the town or the civil for the town, are they familiar with the drainage issue that they would be able to help us give this new civil engineer a scope that they could propose on?
I would think that they are, because the drawing that I shared was from them. They did it in 2014.
Okay. Michelle, would you be willing to just get a quote that we could have a place to start on what it would take to identify the problem?
Yep. I'll give, so the civil engineer is Andrew McCullough. He's out of Ellsworth. And I'll give him a call tomorrow.
Okay. Do you guys have, obviously you sent all these letters. I don't know everybody in the room other than Scott and now Michelle. And we get a email, property list, people list, email list, phone number list that we can communicate from.
The contact is the planning board.
Can we do them?
I don't have emails, or I use the addresses from our tax maps for each property, and that's how I identified and sent notices of this meeting, just so you know.
You sent 15.
13, I think it is. I have the mailing list, yes, which is public information.
Wow.
Yeah, sure.
So as long as we have that, we can mail stuff
Yeah.
to these individuals.
Lyle, David, I'm putting my email address in the chat so you can reach me.
Great.
Is there anything else, Michelle?
What can you tell me, are there any legal obligations to control the water flow from your property? I mean, I'm not familiar. I haven't had any change to my property since my grandparents owned it since the 60s. So I'm not aware of any.
There is, there was the state of Maine passed legislation. It's LD 816. It's titled An Act to Prohibit Changing the Flow of Water on Another's Land. And it is intended to replace the common enemy rule. So the common enemy rule was water is our enemy in general, but the downhill neighbor suffers and no one has any responsibility. This legislation and law was put into place because of an uphill neighbor specifically developing in a way that flooded a downhill neighbor, and a legislator with the state of Maine took up the cause and got it passed into law back in 2006.
So any development post the law any new development has to have a drainage strategy to not impact the downhill folks.
Well, and there's also within the Castine zoning ordinance, you're not allowed to have water leave your property at a rate faster than it arrived.
Yeah, I guess I don't know
So
how
when
you
you look
calculate that.
Well, when you look at all these drains that are coming out of basements, right, that's happening because there's a flood, I would assume, right? There's a downpour and your basement's flooding. In an ideal scenario, you would, outside of your property, outside of your house, in your yard, you would have a reservoir that would hold that water and allow it to percolate into the natural waterway at a rate that did not exceed what happened before you built your house. So, which goes back to what Derek was saying in terms of before houses were built, the water flowed down, but it also absorbed in. And as we continue to get harder and harder surfaces, the water can't seep in, so it flows across. And it's picking up speed, and as it's picking up speed, it's also picking up debris and silt. And that water is eventually making its way into the harbor, which for all of us should be a problem, right? We do not want to contaminate our harbor. But the water is leaving this waterway, it's getting into this town's water system, right at the corner of my property, it's entering, and from there it's going into the harbor. And so if we just look up the hill and we begin to slow the water down off of everybody's property, and the planning board stops approving more water being added to the waterway without slowing it down, I think the problem can be solved. And it's not going to cost everybody an arm and a leg, and we won't have to continue to talk about this.
Knowing that area, I don't see that we're gonna be looking at any additional building. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the increase, what we have right now, seems like it could be the max that we're. That's why we felt it was necessary to try to have a meeting to try to discuss it, see if we can do it, because we do. We have a lot of drainage, and some of the problems that occur is when we put the main sewer lines in Main Street, that actually flooded some of the buildings, with water that have sub pumps going out. So when you're saying you increase the water, it seems like a snowballing effect. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Scott mentioned he has 2 sub pumps
Yes,
in 4 Flags,
yeah,
right? That go out into basically into a pipe that's going out. But all the way up on both sides, we have pipes coming in feeding. And as you said, heavy rains, there's gonna be more water coming out of it. All right, so it's becomes a vicious cycle. And then how we correct it, we don't want you people getting flooded out down there or anybody else, but I'm not seeing a solution.
Did the town do anything special when the parking lot went in behind the hall there? Did you guys take all that to a drainage basin? How'd you guys mitigate that?
There were not sure which parking lot.
Does all that just flow into the drainage as well?
What parking lot?
Whatever the area that got paved out behind the Emerson Hall there.
It's not paved.
Well, it's gravel, right?
Yep. Been gravel for many, many years.
But so gravel is considered in the Castine ordinance as impervious, so it's the same as being paved. And so there's, that would help if the town would start at the top of the hill by slowing the water down that's coming off of Emerson Hall, right? If you've added gravel, you should also have added a way to contain the water to let it enter the waterway at a rate that it entered before the area was gravelled.
It's gonna find its way through that knotweed back there, I can tell you that. And I don't know if once you cleaned it out, in the last year or 2, but.
I mean,
Where
as
is-
I do projects in other towns and cities, right, we're putting catch basins under the parking lot to hold the water so that it then enters the storm system at a rate that it would have entered before we paved the parking lots. This isn't new and it's not rocket science. It's how you manage water. You don't just keep adding to the flow. You've got to slow it down.
Yeah,
Now,
well,
where's the pipe that comes underneath Fort Street? That feeds this historic,
It goes up back from what I can tell.
does it,
It's that one, I think, that has three pipes up there on the upper right-hand corner. It just. So, from what I can tell,
Some of the cellar drains for this building.
I was gonna say that, that's what I assumed the other ones would be, because this used to be a dirt basement.
It was.
Right.
so Michelle, why don't we work together? Let's get a quote. It sounds like, we're probably not going to be able to drive any specific uphill remediation, but if we can establish the quantity of water, rate of water, and a solution that solves the water course at your property, as well as if there are, I'm not aware, but if there are any others that we need to, or maybe that just comes out of this initial study, then that'll present a solution that we can all put a number to and a scale to, and everyone can decide if they do or do not want to participate. Is that a reasonable place to start?
and
We can start there.
any other questions and so forth? Sue, Tony? No? Okay.
Okay, if we're done. Okay, well, I will, ask for motion to adjourn. The select board. Second motion. In favor? Right.
Thanks, everybody. I look forward to being back in Castine soon.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.